Are you ready to unleash your full potential and become unstoppable in your success and leadership?
Welcome to the Unleashed and Unstoppable podcast, where we provide powerful insights and strategies for coaches, corporate leaders, and entrepreneurs. I'm Alexanne Carter.
And I'm Carol Register, and we're certified master neurocoaches who are passionate about helping you overcome your limiting beliefs and optimize your performance.
Each week, we'll be sharing actionable tips and strategies using neuroscience, from interviews with industry experts to solo episodes, to help you lead a life of power, purpose, and possibility on your own terms.
Join our community of like-minded individuals. Hit subscribe now, and let's be unleashed and unstoppable together. Hey, wildly ambitious leaders. We are super excited to be here with you again this week. And we are bringing you the amazing Mona Tenjo. She is an AI specialist, a leadership trainer. And let me just share a little bit about her. She's the co-founder and CEO of Work on Your Business. Love that name, right? As well as the co-host of the World of AI podcast and a multiple times best-selling author. She's recognized as a top 100 entrepreneur by Speakers Excellence, heart-centered coaches. That would be me. Hire Mona to get started with AI to grow their business and free up time. Bottom line, she helps them build a six-figure business in 2 years or less, guaranteed. Ooh, I love that guaranteed part. Mona, tell us more.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. And I mean, as you already mentioned, I love tech, like not always, like the very first laptop I had, as my family had, I destroyed it. I learned some commands in school. By that time, we didn't have Google yet. I couldn't double check what I was doing. So I was trying some commands, and one of it must have been delete password. My English was not that good by that time, originally from Germany, right? And then I made the worst mistake ever you can do. I restarted the machine. I could never log in again.
This sounds like
ever.
Something I would totally do. But you took a risk. I would have been sitting there too scared to touch anything, and you were like, "Let's figure this out."
Yeah, but that set me a little bit back. So I can totally relate when people say like, "I'm scared of tech." I know where you're coming from. So it happened to me, and then I actually had to choose. And like when we were doing high school in Germany, we have to pick a variety of subjects, and they force us. And unfortunately, physics was not an option for me because I was like, I'm really bad at physics. Like, I love the subject. I love how things function, and I love optics and I love that, but I always got bad grades. And I was like, I'm not voluntarily continuing to do that, even though I love the subject. It's just not reflecting in my academics. So I'm just picking another subject. And then we had information technology as a new subject. And I was like, what do I have to lose? It cannot get worse than physics, right? So I just took that one, and then I happened to be okay. Like, I mean, I learned like Turbo Pascal. Like most people don't even know that nowadays anymore. I learned some basic HTML, so I did learn some coding. I had no idea what I was doing, really. I was just like copy pasting. I was like, okay, that worked. Then when it didn't work, I was like, I have no idea what I did wrong, but it doesn't work. So then they fixed it, and I was like, okay. So this is really how I started. So I had really no ideas. And then I happened to work in IT. And how I ended up there was also really funny. I was actually applying for a consulting job during my study in my university. And they called me and I said, Ms. Tenjo, we have a job for you, but it's not consulting. And I was like, I'm open for other options as well. And they said, well, it's in IT. You did read my CV, right? I have no idea about IT. That's why we want to hire you. Now I'm interested. Tell me more. And then I went to a job interview, and they only asked me 2 questions. Are you afraid to talk to strangers? No. Are you able to ask stupid questions? Absolutely. You're qualified. No? So what am I doing now?
What an interview.
Interview 100 people in the IT space, what they do. I was like, okay, what do you do? And then look at what they do and what they work and how workflows work and how they click, And that was the first optimization project I was ending up on to like gather all the requirements, like what do you need? What's not working? Then go to IT and say, we need that fix. And then they say, we can't make anything. Like, why not? Stupid questions, right? Why not? Well, it's too complicated. Why? Well, the programming algorithm. They look at me and I was like, okay, you don't understand the thing. Exactly.
Yeah.
Explain it to me like to a 6-year-old. Okay, whenever you make loops, it takes too long. So if I take the loops out, it works. Okay, cool. I come back. And I went to my drawing board and I changed the loops. And I was like, they said, that works. Cool, then do it. So that's how I started my journey in technology overall, right? And so I totally get it when people say like, oh my God, that's scary, that's a lot. But also what I learned in that journey, it's not as scary when you know what you're doing. And it is not, you don't, especially now with the face of AI, you don't need to know anything anymore. You just have to ask the right questions.
Yeah,
It really gets accessible.
the quality of our life is really dependent on the quality of our
Yeah.
questions. And you were already in that flow, and now you're right. All we have to do is ask the questions. And I think that's such a key point in being able to utilize AI to our advantage. It's just keep asking it the right questions, until it is delivering what you're really looking for, the information you're looking for. I do want to share with you, it's interesting what you said about physics. And there is hope for you out there who love physics, because I love it. And a lot of times what gets in the way is the math, right? If you haven't gone to that level of math, then you're held back. But there is such a thing as conceptual physics, and that's where I started on my physics journey. And especially working in the gymnastics field for so many years, physics was a daily part of it. And even starting to apply the concepts was very valuable, where I wasn't in a technical field where I needed to apply the math. But here's the cool thing. Once I started with the conceptual physics, then the math came along too. And so that is something where, and I could definitely go deeper, let me tell you, I'm a hobbyist, but it's cool to hear how this redirected you altogether when maybe it looked like it was the only option at a time. But also, like I just want all of us to know that there are options in that field and in that area as well. So,
Well, I was just gonna say AI is a great, AI becomes our partner. Like that's what's so cool. My experience with AI is that it's really opened up the opportunity to learn literally everything. Because if something doesn't make sense, like Mona, you said, it's just about asking the question. And the conversations that you were having with those tech guys is literally now how you converse with AI. And that's what's so cool. It is about the conversation, and it's not even having about the right question. It's literally about asking the question. And if you don't get the outcome that you're looking for, then you get to go back and look at, okay, how do I get to reword this? And I would say this is what is fun. Because I'm going to say, like, you working with AI is so fun. Like, it really is getting to really see like what is possible, like what can you create. Before we recorded, I was sharing with Mona, I generated a caricature of my daughter for her birthday cake, and it was just a matter of asking. I just asked ChatGPT. I was like, can you create this? Like, uploaded images. And that's what's so neat. One, it's like it changes rapidly, which is so cool, because if something's not, you can't do it that week, that day, that week, try again the week after. And it's always adapting. And that's what's fascinating, is like, it is fun to just test the waters, like just jump in first feet. And what I wanted to lean into, because as we were talking, Mona, about some of the tech stuff, I know, because I also have a tech background, it's a language. I think I just want to stress that it becomes another language, because I know a lot of times people can shut down and like, I'm not good at technology. It is just another language, just like French and Spanish, German, right? And just like with any language, you start small, right? You learn hello, bonjour, guten tag, hola, right? You start with some of the very basics, and then you continue, you gradual, but it starts with those simple words, just like taking that leap with AI. So I'm curious to know, Mona, like, how are you using AI in your own personal life, and how are you helping business owners generate and create these 6-figure businesses in 2 years or less? Like, the thing with AI is like it's literally like the possibilities are endless. And for the listeners out there to learn a little bit more of like how that can help them in their, their
Yeah.
personal lives and their professional lives, really help them be more effective and more efficient with their time. And, because you know about me, I'm all about having more time to do the things that we love to do.
Mhm.
And sometimes for me, it's also having more time to play with the AI piece. But yeah, I'd love to hear more about that from you.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I really personally use it for everything. So, I mean, I never considered myself a creative person. That changed totally when ChatGPT came out. And I was like, "Ooh, this is so awesome." So now I can put all my creativity, like I love documentations. I love to figure out how things work, like I'm a curious
Mm.
person. I'm like, what if we take this and we combine it with this? Let's see what comes out. I mean, I don't come up with these ideas because that would take me forever. But now it's like, bing, 100 ideas. And I was like,
Yeah,
ooh, I like that one. Let's go with that. Let's go deeper on that, right? So I use
Mhm.
it for anything brainstorming. I
I
use
love
it for
that.
anything coming up with titles, and
Yeah.
especially, I mean, especially when you have, so I'm a techie, right? Just like Alex Leanne. And so we speak different than our clients because the clients we can serve most are not tech savvy. Now, if I start talking funnels, APIs, they're like, I'm out. I already have no idea what you're talking about, right? Or hooks or stuff like this. No, they're like out. And so I need to find, especially in marketing, I need to find languaging that people
Yeah.
actually understand. Now, I
Yeah.
don't speak like my clients, but I recognize it when I see it. So because I speak a lot with my clients, so I'm like, yeah, that's my clients right there. This is exactly how they talk. But I cannot create it because it's not the way I speak. So I'm giving in what I would say, and then I say, this is my target audience.
Mm.
Rephrase that so that they find
Mm.
themselves and
Yeah.
that they have rapport with that. And suddenly it's like, and I'm like, that's the words they would use.
Yeah.
They would use the systems. They would say, like, I need a step-by-step process to do X, but they wouldn't use a
Mm.
system because that's not the words they think. My clients speak in, I feel. I don't feel, I think.
Mm.
I'm a rational person, but small things like this make a big difference in marketing. So I'm using
Yeah.
it for all of those translation works. I actually use it for literal translations. I right now serve a corporate customer in Africa, and they have a lot of French speaking, they have a lot of Arabic
Yeah.
speaking. So I'm giving my stuff in English and I just copy paste it. I luckily can read some French. I did learn it a few years, yes. Also some Spanish. But then if I see it, I know, yep, that's correct. Also I can validate that this is correct, but I
Yeah.
cannot create it anymore because I'm
Yeah.
out of speaking
I
exercise.
can
I
relate to
used it
that
for
with translators. Sometimes you're looking at it and you're going, no, it's not right.
yeah,
Even though you're using the tool. So that's valuable that you have that background where you can actually evaluate and work with people around the world in whatever situation they're in.
totally. I use it for gifts for my grandparents had 50 years of marriage. And I was like, what cool thing
Oh,
can I give them? I have no idea. And then it came up with some really unique ideas. And one of it was a newspaper from the day of their marriage. And I was like, oh, that's a good one. I bought it.
yeah.
My grandfather was literally sitting with the newspaper on the marriage. It was like, I
Wow.
remember that, he said. So it
Wow.
was crazy. So even for personal ones, you can have, if you have children and you have some stuff laying around, you're like, I'm not creative coming up with a game. Like you can make a picture and say, what can I do with that? My child is in this age range.
Mm.
What can I do with what I have? I use it for cooking recipes. Like if I'm missing an ingredient, I'm like, what else can I put in there that it makes it tasty, right? I'm really using it for everything. And for my client, I mean, of course, it's business focused, but it's all with the goal of how can you save time? How can you speed up things? So for example, I'm using it for if you have a podcast interview, there are tools that can automatically chop your entire video and extract the best bits. Now, more and more tools like Riverside, they build it inside themselves, but you also have standalone tools like Video AI, for example, which are literally, and this is, I mean, I used first Video AI. I mean, the other competitors are, catching up. Obviously, it's very quick.
Yeah.
But like that one was the first one I loved because it intelligently found when is a sentence starting and ending. And so usually you had like 30 seconds, and it didn't matter if the sentence was over or not. It was just like chop. And so this was intelligent. So this alone, like you used to have to listen to an entire podcast, entire hour, chop it out. It took about 1.5 to 2 hours to actually edit it. Now you can just upload it, get a coffee. It takes like 10 minutes, depending on the length to upload it. Get your coffee, wait until it generates, and you're like, let me see what came out here. And then you just pick the best. And it even now ranks it like automatically with points, like how likely will that video go viral. So it even chops,
Wow.
it even gives you that indication. It gives the
Wow.
subtitles. You can have templates, all of that, And so it's just like that thing alone saves so much time, Of course,
That's
any types of text
amazing.
generation. If you don't like, if you're an introvert, right? You can take your voice and let videos generate,
Mhm.
like not search, generate. They didn't exist before, right? That's also a new concept. Most people are like, where did you get that from? It didn't exist before. Unless you pressed create, it wasn't there, right? So they created literally. And I mean, those things are getting better. I mean, I know that some of the big players like
Yeah.
ChatGPT have better things on some of those tools. They're
Yeah.
currently testing with Hollywood because there are some glitches, like things moving in the wrong direction of the movement. You're like, that's off. So they're still getting there, they're testing it, right? And so, but once those things get released, wow, that's going to be a whole nother level of what you can do with it.
That's amazing. What is your favorite part of what you're doing with AI right now?
Hmm.
I mean, I really use it for most of my clients at the moment. I mean, I do use a lot of other. I love automations. I love to make things just work, but that's my personal thing. For my clients, that's often already way too much. So we really start with ChatGPT because most people use even that one wrong, right? And it is the most accessible. Most people don't even know that you have a mobile app. You can actually talk in there. You don't have to type everything. So most people are not aware of those things. Or I still meet people that haven't figured out that actually ChatGPT can create images, which is already quite some time it can do that, right? But some people
That's
still don't know that.
amazing. Yeah.
Or that you can, I mean, I'm a project manager as well. So I upload Excels and I'm like, can you please update my project plan? I'm too lazy. I need those following 10 lines. Please put it in a sequential, logically correct order and make suggestions on how long that should take. And then I get my
Wow.
coffee and then it's like, done. And I mean, then I have an Excel where I just have to format it a little bit and it's done. I mean, this was tasks that used to take an hour to just do that
Mm.
stuff manually, right? And now it's just like, I'm just checking. I was like, yep, that makes sense. I would do it the same. Awesome. And off you
Well,
go.
and I think that's something important to remind the listener when you are using any type of AI, you do get to check the work, right? It's really
Yeah.
easy to want to go copy paste, boom, but you still get to connect with what's there. You gotta, you know, looking at AI, it's like working with an assistant. I mean, really, that's what it is. It is a literal virtual assistant, right? Being on the, a tech assistant, and you still get to check it over, right? Look it over to see if it's in line with your voice, what you're focusing on, because ultimately you are still the expert. I think that's what's really important, even when it
Yeah.
comes to even with recipes or activities or whatever. Like, as much as AI is fantastic and what you can do with it, there are still limitations. Nothing replaces a human. And I think that's really, really important
Yeah.
to stress that. I think when it comes to the technology, it's still not going to replace that human connection, that personal touch, that relationship piece, right? And I think it's so easy to just go and run with AI and like as you said, go grab your coffee, come back. But there's still, and I really love Mona because you mentioned it multiple times, right? You grab your coffee, you come back and you sit there, you sip your coffee, you enjoy your coffee while you're going through to revise and make sure, even if you're going through a recipe, right? Like
Mhm.
checking, it's so easy to just scan over things really, really quickly, but it's
Yeah.
still important to pay attention to some of the details and also just not be afraid. I think I just want to drive that home, right?
Yeah.
Like
Totally. There's even
what's
an
coming,
official, there's even
what,
an official, that concept is called
Yeah.
human in the loop. That is an
Yeah.
AI concept that
yeah.
actually, like, you have to be in the loop. You need to give it corrections, Like AI, I mean, this is what
Mhm.
most people don't really understand. Like, how does AI come up with responses? It
Yeah.
gives you the most likely answer that it thinks you want to know. So that's a predictability estimation. Now you may say, I actually meant something else. Well, you have to give it feedback. And this is where many people get frustrated. They're like, I thought I was clear. Now it gives me nonsense, so I'm not using it anymore. No, you have
Mhm.
to give it feedback. Just like with a
Yeah.
human. They didn't get it. Well, you have to explain it again, right? And then you have to maybe give a bit more context, And maybe you have to explain what that word means for you. That's the same with humans, right? We have different words. I was sitting so many times in IT meetings where two IT experts talk to each other about customization. I was like, it sounds so easy, right? It's a custom-made thing. And I was like, okay, like, and everybody was like, after 10 minutes, like, okay, all set, we can go. Okay, hold on, before we leave. Tell me, please, what customization means for you. And they say, well, we have
Yeah.
to program the entire thing. And what does it mean for you? We just have to switch a button. And knowing that, would you still make the same assumption? We have to sit back on a table. Thank you. And this happens all the time in communication. I mean, if you are a leader, right? If you are having a team, this happens all the time, And it's not that you are communicating bad. It just happens because we have different assumptions, different backgrounds. I'm not a native speaker. Sometimes I'm like, I have no idea what they're talking about because I don't know these words. Sometimes I get it out of context. Sometimes I'm literally like, Scooby-Doo look like, And if you don't see the person because you text, then you also miss the context of like, okay, I look in the face and I see that they have no idea what I'm talking about. But if you don't see the person, you're like, then you have cultural experts coming in. Some countries don't tell you that they are confused.
Yeah.
They just say, yeah, everything is right. Ooh, that's a dangerous sign.
Yeah. Yeah, the questions, right? The communication. And I heard you earlier alongside the things that Alex Leanne just drew out. I heard that your creativity is a really important part of the process. When you were talking about putting in this and going to get your coffee and everything I kept hearing was creative, which the brain is so powerful on the solution side of things when you're in that space. And I think that's really beautiful. Then you're adding to it these pieces that, sorry, I got a trickle in my throat. That you're adding in, the looking at the questions, the communication, the human feedback loop, right? And all of these pieces are what make this such a valuable tool for us to utilize. And how much corporate work are you doing now? What proportion of corporate work would you say you're doing versus business owners?
50-50 approximately. So I do work. I mean, I'm home in big companies. I grew up in them. I'm very good in office politics. I know how to make everybody feel good, and then they believe it's all there. Like I'm really good in like feeding and catering to the right people and still getting the job done. So it would be crazy to not use that skill set. But at the same time, I also one of the reasons why I'm helping a lot of small businesses as well is they need those skill sets. And usually you don't have a full-time project manager who can guide you through a process, and then people get so overwhelmed. I just had that yesterday with one of my clients, and she was like, I feel so guilty, like because I know I should have done it a long time ago. I still haven't done it. Now I have all these things piling up and I don't even know where to start. And then I don't show up to the training because I feel guilty. And I was like, oh my God, we have to get through that. And this is where, again, a lot of the techniques that I teach, I learned in the corporates, the Eisenhower matrix. If you're overwhelmed, write everything down that's on your head and start classifying that stuff and say, like, okay, what's garbage? The first thing you do is throw the garbage away. Everything that's not urgent and not important, throw it away. I was like, but what if it will come back if it's important? Don't worry. I had one time a friend of mine who was calling me and she was like, Mona, I just found an email inbox I have. One of my assistants was supposed to take care of it and they didn't do it. And I have 10,000 emails in there. I don't even know what to do. I was like, how many of them are older than 2 months? 8,000, delete them. She was like, I can't, you can, delete them right now. And she was like, but what if? Now, if it was important, you would have already known about it. They would have reached out in another way. They would have come back. You would have found it. Don't worry. And if it really is important, it will come back. Don't worry, right? So delete them. There was 2,000 left. Okay, from the 2,000, do you see a pattern? Do you see some newsletters and stuff like this? Yeah, create a rule. Put them in a separate folder. How many are left now? 500. Ah, there we go. We're getting closer, right? Do you see any other things now that you have it? This is the way you do it. And this is what I learned in corporate. So like, because you will always be having more work than you actually have time. That's always the case. So you have to find a mechanism of how do you break that down. And now with AI, you can speed it up. Like this always worked, even if you didn't have technology in AI, but now you can actually add AI on top of it and give that list to AI and say, classify it for me based on the Eisenhower matrix.
I love that.
That's cool.
That is a golden tip right there, right? That I'm going to apply.
You obviously have to say, okay, I am in this business. This is right now important for me. This is what you have to set. because Eisenhower matrix works on on importance and on urgency. Urgency is defined by timeline, obviously. So put in your tasks the timeline so that AI knows that this is urgent, right? So until when do you have to do things? But then on top of it, you have to define what is important, because if your family is number one, say it. Because then it will rank the family tasks higher than the rest, right? If you say certain clients are more important or certain projects, you have to give that as a criteria. But then AI can say, there you go. And of course, you can double check and say, no, I think this is in the other box. But if you happen to find yourself putting all the unimportant stuff into something like super urgent, something is off. I challenge you. Don't do that. The most urgent, most important box should be the smallest, always. If that is the biggest, something is in your priorities off.
I just want to lead in for the audience a little bit, Mona, as you're talking there, because going back to, as you said, like, okay, if you want to try the Eisenhower method and you have to let ChatGPT know like your values and things like that. One thing that I guess when I want to stress and what I love about this is like literally is also kind of my motto of like building a life and business by backwards by design. It's the same thing with AI and ChatGPT. So if you want to create something, so for example, if you want to use the Eisenhower method and have ChatGPT organize it for you, it's to start with the question of, in order to put my priorities into the Eisenhower method, what information do you need from me? That way it'll ask you and it'll prompt you to provide, for example, your values. What are your priorities? What's your timeline? What's your time frame? And because a lot of times too, you can start with like, what information does it even need? And you might try and say, okay, here are all of my things, do the Eisenhower method, and you don't get your outcome because ChatGPT didn't have enough information. So one thing, it goes back to the questions is reverse engineering, right? And it's kind of what I did with Abby's photo. I asked it, this is the outcome I want. One, can you do this? And two, what do you need from me to then create that? And it goes back to realizing like AI is like having someone else that you're having a conversation with. You are having a conversation. You're asking questions. It's asking questions to you. You get to work with AI to then create and produce the outcome. And I just want to drive that home because I'll say for myself, like as part of an AI mastermind recently, and this was really the thing that was driven home in terms of when in doubt, ask questions. When in doubt, if you're not getting the outcome you're looking for, ask ChatGPT. What is in the gap? Just like the conversations you were having, Mona, with the text at the beginning, right? And it's not a natural thing. So let's go back. Let's talk about neuroscience, right? Let's talk about programming and like how our brains work. A lot of times, I think we operate a lot in our heads, right? We've got so much going on. And so we're conversing a lot's going on in our heads, right? So if you find yourself, I know this is a big thing with me. Like I'll have a conversation in my mind and my husband is like, like I'm literally having the conversation more internally versus externally. So you do get to build a muscle, if this is not something you're used to, of having the conversation and asking questions and getting specific. So if you're someone who finds that maybe you're a little bit more like vague, right? Then it becomes, a test of like really getting specific, especially of how you're asking. I literally have had my husband step in because he's more like that. He's more analytical. I've had him step in and say, I'm not getting the outcome I want. What's missing? Like what's in the gap in terms of my instructions? I think that's what's really important to just like working with anybody, right? Working with your team and working and providing instruction to create something. It's the same thing. And being able to ask like what, I guess for ChatGPT, getting verification that it understands what you're asking for, just like we'll say to our peers and colleagues, like, what are you hearing me say? What's landing for you? To remember that in a way, tech is like that too. So I just want to drive that home because I know that's made a big shift for me. It's taking me less time to get the outcome I'm looking for because I'm having more of a conversation in terms of like asking questions and because I think that that's sometimes what happens, right? We say it's going to help you be more effective and more efficient. And then people will jump on for the first time and be like, okay, what's going on? But just like anything, it's like learning to drive a new car, right? It's going to take a second to adjust and to be reminded of that just like anything, right? There's that growing pain, there's learning how to use it. But once you develop that, then it does become more effective and more efficient there. So
I think that's a beautiful point, Alex Leanne. And I think, when you're listening, my friend, that there's these key points, like the ability to organize your things, utilizing AI by utilizing the Eisenhower method, the asking the questions, communicating, going back to the questions, as you both have said, recognizing that this is such a specific tool. And Mona, I would love to lean in and ask you, how would you help us to get to six figures? How would you utilize AI? Are there any tips that you can give us right now that would show us that?
Yes. So, I mean, really, how I help people is actually a 5-stage process. It starts with freeing up time because most people don't have time. And if you want to fix anything, and I was a consultant for many, many years. The one thing you do as a consultant is you try to come in front of the wave. So you want to think ahead. You want to know what the client's problems will be before he has them so that you have the solution ready. And that's the same in business. Most people always run behind. That's why my company is called Work on Your Business, not in it. You have to be on front of the topics, right? So that's number one. So we free up time. This usually means people work too often on the wrong thing. So what I just discussed yesterday with my client, she's so overwhelmed by guilt that she starts doing things like organizing her desk. And I was like, what the hell are you doing? Like, this is not making any money. How many people did you call today? Well, I was busy organizing.
We're going to have to share the neuroscience with you.
I know, I'm like,
I'm like,
that's
we got to tell you.
That's the brain doing its job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is like where I realize, okay, I mean, I know that people react different. I mean, some withdraw themselves, one get a bit distracted. So everybody has their own methodologies, but like you have to start realizing this. And this is the first phase. Like we have to understand, what are we doing? Like, even if we have little time, some people still have a full-time job. They want to start a business on the side. It's okay to only have 2 or 4 hours a week, but you have to know what to allocate your tasks. So for example, if you have whatever amount of number you have, 70% building and monetizing of relationships in any business, okay? 20% marketing and sales. You realize something, 90% marketing, sales, people. And then you have 10% admin. If you find yourself doing 80% admin, this is the wrong calculation, okay? You're not going to build a business like that. Then the second big piece is many people I work with already have something going on. But the mistake they do is they keep making the same mistakes over and over again. They have a funnel, it doesn't work. They do the next product. Then when I look at the funnel, I'm like, but hold on. Nobody has even seen your product yet. How do you want to know they don't like that? They haven't even seen it yet. So we have to fix what's not working. And this is where AI is amazing. Because, I mean, I've just had that conversation last week, I think. We were building, like I was helping clients build, like find their target audience that actually can pay them. So sometimes it's just a small adjustment, but the wordings you use attracts the wrong people. So we were going through that process. And the client was at the second step like, oh my God, I love these topics. And I was like, no, we don't want to take those topics, because she said in the beginning that she's an energy healer and she works with people on getting clarity. Now, the target group we picked for her, and that makes sense for her, is employed executives that are stuck in their job and feel frustrated. Fair point. And they don't yet know what their next step will be. Makes totally sense. Now, the topics that ChatGPT came up with was how to find a career you love. And I was like, no. She was like, yeah, I love it. I was like, no, but again, this is where the human in the loop comes in. I am an energy healer. What you're proposing me is career coaching. You would attract the people with the wrong topic. Now we only had to tweak it a little bit and say, be clear about your next career step. And suddenly it works, So I was like, it's small change. And this is where most people get tied up. They are very close to success, but they are like this little misconception, the clients don't really get it. I'm using the wrong words. Like I also told her, like, be careful with things like universal destiny. You're talking to corporate women. Careful. Like if it's getting too woo-woo, you will repel them and they have the money to pay you. What you do at the end in the course doesn't even matter because, like if you do hypnotherapy or NLP, it doesn't matter as long as it works.
Yeah.
You don't sell that piece, you sell the result.
Yeah.
And so I'm helping them in a second. This is the biggest step, how you make money and how you earn six figures. Most of the people are very close to success, but they don't know how to tweak it.
Right.
Another big thing is their numbers. Most people don't know their numbers. It's like, how many people are in your offer? I don't know. Well, we have to find out.
Yeah.
Because you cannot say that something doesn't work if you don't know how many people actually saw it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then once that process works, then we put automation on top. No, we do not start with automation. We first fix the process because if a broken process is automated, it works faster. Not.
That's powerful. Yeah.
Makes no sense, right? So don't automate anything you don't know it works. And
if
then
we're not enrolling anybody, if we're not talking to people about what is actually possible for them, and yet we go to automate it, then we're just spinning our wheels, right? And how many of you have been in that place? I have been in that place with my businesses. And it's such an important thing that I just want to emphasize this, what she's leaning into here, getting the process correct so that you can automate it. This is huge, Mona, and just really appreciate that.
You're welcome. I mean, this is my consulting background, right? Like if you would do this in a corporate, they would be like, what the hell are you doing? You are having like 1,000 activities a day that nobody actually needs or that go into like an empty, like this is just burning money, right? This is the same thing, like never ever run ads. If you don't know whether your offer converts, don't do that. Like if you cannot generate organic sales with your existing customers, with your existing projects, do not run ads on top of this. It won't make it better. You may get new sales, but like if you know it, if your own customers don't want it, something is off. Fix it first, and you will have more results.
I've heard from so many people who have done that exact thing that you're talking about. They've run ads and then they're completely frustrated. They're like, why is this not working? And, it's putting those proper steps in place. And I can hear very much how you operate in a way that is prioritizing and organizing the Eisenhower matrix again, having a cleaned out inbox, being able to, ask the right questions and put things into place. And I do want to say, Alex, Leanna, and I, we both get excited because knowing how your brain is wired and how it actually functions, you cannot outperform your subconscious. Can't happen. So you will continue to go and sit and pick the lint out from behind your dryer and procrastinate before you put these processes for your goals and dreams in place if you're not paying attention to that. So pairing these things in the right priority order, I think is just something that is so incredibly powerful because it's the clues that success leaves us that actually work and the ways we can put AI and automation as powerful tools, totally expanding our universes, right? And elevating them. So you can tell I'm excited.
I had a time management program. I created that in 2018 before AI came out, and it worked. It was work, but it worked. Like you had to change your habits, you had to be disciplined, but it worked. And so you could free up 20 hours a week, but it was work to get there. Now with AI, you can free it up even if you don't change your habit. You can still free it up, just by using it. Like you can save with like if you have to write a complicated email. And you are like, okay, I want it to sound a certain way, but I want to get that point across, but I also want to do that. And like, how do I make that so that they're not offended? Like such emails easily take half an hour, and you like dwell on it. And you're like, how do I write it? And now AI is like, I was like, that's pretty good. I can use that, like it's
work with that.
Well, and I just like we talk a little bit about different operating systems and styles and like the way, like even the way that someone can receive the information on the other end. And so I like, oh my goodness, it saved me so much time and communication. Cause sometimes, I think naturally, we either sound direct or like, there's a certain way that we might like write an email. But as you said it before, Mona, right? Again, it's this conversation. We can't always like connect with that feeling. And what I find with being able to use the AI with the communication piece, especially if it's, first like in DMs or an email, is that you can also educate and say, like, make it sound like this so it's received this way. And I'm finding like my communication is so much more like lighting and warming, especially like in certain type of ways because of that. And I know like email has always been a thing for me, and now I actually enjoy it because again, it's this fun piece, like tapping the creative style of like I can, sound much more approachable now in some of my email communication that in hindsight, looking back, I'm like, okay, maybe I could have spent more time on this, for example, right? But now like it's all of the components as you even talking about that relationship piece, even through online communication, because yes, with emails and DMs, sometimes it can be received a certain way. You can have a tool like this is going to help you sound the way that you want to sound and to be received on the other end. If you're talking to someone who's more analytical, you can actually have the email sound more analytical. Someone who is more heart-centered, you can use emotional, you can use more of that. Someone who's more direct. And so it's so neat because then you're really being able to have that received as well from the person that you are working with. So, I mean, all this stuff excites me because we could like all the different angles when you look at relationships. It goes back to what you said, right? That relationship piece. And even looking at how AI can support you, still doesn't replace you as the person, but it can help you really connect on a whole other level because now you can meet more people where they're at, which is really huge, especially in relationships and in leadership and creating that. So keep on going. I know you said 5 steps, and I don't want us to leave the listener high and dry.
I just want to give one bonus tip to what you just said, a little extra tip when it comes to creating content and should I use it, yes or no? If you cringe, don't use it. Like never use something what makes you cringe that you are not standing behind. Don't post it. Change it, okay? And when you say like, yeah, I could say that, this is me, right? Then use it. So that's a good like gut feeling test you can do. So basically, so we have to, first freeing up time, and that's ongoing. Like, guys, I want to destroy your illusion. If you think one-time time management is enough, it will always keep coming back, okay? And don't worry, that's okay. Because once you have the tools, okay, now is the time I'm feeling overwhelmed. Now let me bring out my toolbox and do it again. And don't feel like you failed. It will always happen again. I'm really good. I'm a bestseller on time management. It never stops, okay? Be cool. And once you know how to deal with it, it's easier, okay? So don't freak out. It happens to everybody all the time. Then we have the time freed up. We know how we can make more out of what we have, how we fix our processes. Then we start automating these processes. And by the way, not every automation makes sense. Sometimes you can also over automate where you're like, what the hell are you doing? Like, I mean, I think there's some really cool guys who are like automating the entire house. You stand up and the coffee machine. I mean, you can do fun stuff. Don't get me wrong. The question is, do you really need that, right? So you can take it to the extreme. And then the next step would be to then start delegating. And our delegation can have various limits. So some people say, I don't want to talk to more people. My clients are already enough. Can I give that to a bot? Yes, of course. Or you can say, like, I love people. I like my team. I want my team. I want to have some VAs. I want to have my own team members, right? Obviously. Now, the thing with delegation is also a little tricky for some people. You cannot delegate something you haven't understood yourself. Right? So either you delegate to an expert who knows what he has to do, then you don't need to know everything. That's okay. That's why you hire experts. They should know what they're doing, but then you pay a certain price, right, for that expertise. If you delegate to somebody who's not an expert, like who's somebody in your team that you taught them or that you bring them in for a specific skill set and that's something else, you have to teach them that process, right? So if you haven't understood how that works, you can't teach it to somebody else, right? That's why you go first through that process. And once you understood it, then you can give it to somebody else. And then you also know what do they have to be, where do they have to pay attention, where are some hiccups that usually happen. Then you can give them all those best practices and then they get great results. The cool thing is the SOPs, standard operating procedures, are the same for the bot and for the people. It's the same. You decide where you give it to, right? And then, or you could also outsource it to providers, obviously, same thing, right? So that's really then up to you. And then finally, it's rinse and repeat. Once you have that done and somebody else is doing it, now you pick the next process, because trust me, you will have other processes, either another product, another funnel, or you can also use that obviously for your internal systems. Like, we're always somehow behind the client requests. Like somehow we have to find a process to like speed that up, or like, like the tickets are piling up. Like you will always have problems in a business. Then you just go again, the same thing, like what is not working? The issue, right? It doesn't have to be a funnel all the time. It can be, why are we always missing out on certain things? Why are my follow-ups not working correct, right? So it could be any problem. And then you see, okay, what's not working? Let's see that we fix that. Once you fix that, can we automate it? Again, sometimes it's a no, that's okay. You still find a way to streamline it. And then you give it to somebody or to a bot. Then you do it again. You will always have one. Don't worry, as you grow your business, you will have new problems. Don't worry, you will never run out of problems. But once you have that process, you can repeat that on your own as long as you need to. And that's what makes the scaling, because once you have it, you have this blueprint of this is how you solve pretty much any problem in your business. You just know, okay, what's the goal? How do we fix that? Outsource it to somebody else. Next one, right? And then as you go, you will be faster. That's how.
And AI can help you, right? Those SOPs as well. So the AI can work with you to build your standing operating procedures as well. So again, also ways to help speed things up. So yeah, it's fascinating. Like just really looking at how AI is really just shifted things the last, I guess, 6 months to a year. I mean, I know it's like a little bit before that it came out. And I shared earlier, like for me, it literally is like that is in some ways my virtual assistant. It's really like, even we talked earlier about the podcast, like creating parts of the podcast, like is so much more effective and efficient. And it's that rinse and repeat and getting it to that point. But once you get it there, and there's tweaking, because there's always changes to tech, but just to know that, to kind of grow with it. So Mona, for the listener who's listening to this, you've shared a little bit about you've shared your 5 steps to really grow that 6-figure business in 2 years. We've talked about AI, really looking at ways that we can use it to be more effective and efficient, not just in our business, but our lives. What would you say to the person who still has a little bit of fear, that uncertainty, right? Because that's the thing with technology, especially if we've operated up until now from this belief, right, that I'm not good at technology is scary. What would you say to the listener for them to be willing to take that leap? Because we're on the other side of that. And it's so easy when we're on the other side of it to say how this is so great and look at how this is going to help you. But for those that are still over here that haven't quite taken the leap yet, or maybe they have a little bit, but they've experienced some frustration or some overwhelm and have all that uncertainty, right? Which again, we know that's our brain doing its job to keep you safe. We want to support the listener in crossing that line, because we really do see how this can really impact them in a positive way. So yeah. So how do you want to address that for the listener?
Of course. So number one, I mean, I heard this from many of my own clients, right? I mean, when I started saying, hey, did you use like ChatGPT? Like, I'm not qualified. I was like, what are you talking about? Well, I'm not qualified. I was like, what do you define qualification with? Like, as long as you can type or speak, you're qualified. So the entrance level of using technology has never been easier. I understand that you may have a little bit, those complex tools like Confusionsoft, stuff like this. Like, this is like very complicated. I get it. Don't worry. We are talking right now with AI. We're talking about the so-called new tech. And new tech is easy. It's designed that way. No tool will survive in today's world if it is complicated, because the user acceptance rate will drop so dramatically. And working in software companies, I can guarantee you, if user acceptance drop, the company is out of business. Okay. So if a tool is not user-friendly, it will be out. So don't worry about it. Okay. So give it a chance. Okay. And then when you see you don't get the results, again, take a look in the mirror. I know some of you won't like that. This is the first time ever in history where you cannot blame somebody else. Because if you don't get the result you want, you're talking to a machine. It means something you said wasn't really phrased correctly. And so
Yeah.
don't freak out. And then you can talk to AI like to a person. You can say, I'm a little bit disappointed from this output. I expected you to be a bit more creative, right? Can you try again? Now, it will not, it's a machine that doesn't have feeling. I'm still nice to my machine for a very simple reason. So not only that the robots maybe one day take over and I want mine to be on my side, the real reason is habits, you know? If you yell at the machine all the time, what happens when you talk to a person?
What are you
That
wiring
switch is very
in?
quick, right?
Yeah.
So you wanna, I mean, I was raised politely, so I'm also polite to my bot, just because the more you communicate with it, the more you build the habit. So be a bit careful on that. But still, it's not offended, so don't overcomplicate that, okay? So if you're like, that is crap, then say it like that. Like, communicate to that bot just like you think. If you say like, it's not really there yet, write it exactly like that. It's not yet there. Something is missing. I'm feeling it's this and this and this. Can you retry? You
Yeah.
know, and just talk to like to a person, like, because many people freak out on like, what if I don't find the perfect question? There is no perfect question. Chill, okay?
Yeah.
Just have a conversation. And if you're like, okay, I'm getting frustrated, the worst thing that can happen is that you have to restart a chat and make a new one. Because a new chat is an empty new conversation where you can say, okay, let's try that again from scratch. Forget everything before. You don't even have to say it. It is actually like this. You open a new chat, it is forgotten. You start from
Interesting.
scratch again and say, okay, sometimes it happens that you get so stuck that it just doesn't move anymore. Start a new chat.
Okay. Okay. That's good to know. That's actually very helpful.
And also another really cool thing is this is creativity techniques. Sometimes it's good to go to the opposite side. So if the idea you're currently working on is not really getting to a point, think of what's the opposite. I'll give you an example. One of my clients was talking about getting women of color on the boardroom tables. And she was thinking about create your own seat. And I was like, I don't really know if that really works, you know? So we were
Yeah.
playing around with that theme for 15 minutes. It was like, it's a little bit like, it's not getting better. What does the boardroom represent today?
Yeah.
Old boys network.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can do something with this angle. So then go on the opposite side, okay? So try different. And if you don't know creativity techniques, ask AI. It can tell you, okay? Like, how else can I get better results? Give me some ideas, you know? And then it
Yeah.
gives you those things. So that's really some tips. So don't give up. Like, you also haven't been walking like, really, if you go to that, and this is with any skill, orientate a little bit more on children. They fall, they stand up, they dust off, and they continue. Do the same as an adult. There's no shame in that, right? And you will get better the more you move on and just try it.
Something I
Wow.
always tell our students is try to break it, right? Like you can't break it. Like maybe Mona, I would say like your story definitely shows how you actually can break it, but technology has come a long way since then.
Well,
You
we could
can't
have gone
break
to an
it,
expert and fix
right?
it, but we
Yeah.
didn't do
But you can't
it.
break it. Like you really can't. Like sometimes I might get funny, log in, log out, try again, start a new chat. Just as you mentioned there, I just want to also for the listener to understand, like if you have a chat open, you're having a conversation, the ChatGPT will kind of run through all that information. And so it starts to take longer and it might eventually time out, especially if you're using the free software. So it doesn't hurt to start a new, fresh conversation if it's something that's unrelated. Obviously, if you're working on something and like you are kind of educating it on a certain conversation, like if you're doing certain marketing, or doing something like sales or something and you want it to like continue like that sort of thread, but think like new conversations, like new topic, new thing that you're working on, because sometimes you will find like this doesn't make sense because it's making reference to information you already have in there. So I'm even going for menus, right? Like if you're asking for chicken recipes and then you switch to fish recipes in the same thread, you might get a mix, a mismatch there because you were first talking about chicken and about fish. So just being mindful of that in terms of the conversation, right? Like it makes reference to that. So that's it's always
Man,
important to like
I
remember
just love this conversation. And, I, as we wrap up, Mona, like any last thoughts that you can offer in terms of using AI to help us become unleashed and unstoppable?
I mean, I can really just recommend you to actually, use it. I mean, really, the biggest mistakes you can do is not using it
Yeah.
because I guarantee you your competitor will use it. And
Mm.
so AI will not drive you out of business, but people that use it will. Okay. So don't think like, okay, I'm ethical, I'm not using it. You can use AI also ethical. Okay. And you
Yeah.
should be, by the way.
Yeah.
Don't do illegal things with it, please. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's, of course, the number one baseline for everything. But there's really so much more possibility and so much more. I think, should I share my training, Carol?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And just so you know, friend, we are here for you, and we will be putting all of the information about what Mona has available for you in the show notes, including her podcast, which is super exciting. Definitely go and listen to her podcast as well as subscribing to ours. And we are so thankful for you being here. So, yes, please share.
Absolutely. So one of the biggest things I see, especially when it comes to making money in business, right? And I know this is an annoying topic, right? But I keep seeing like, unfortunately, we always have to go back to that point. It's your target audience, right? Because if you are not clear about who you serve, your entire campaign cannot work. Sometimes it will work, that's luck.
Yeah.
Luck is not reproducible, okay? So if you want to have a sustainable business, you need something that you can reproduce, okay? And so you need to really be clear. So I created a 10-minute, totally free, yeah, everybody can have this totally for free, a training on how to get your coaching client clarity. If you're not a coach, you can still watch it. Don't worry. It also works for you, okay? Just take coach out of the equation. It still works, okay? And this training, I'm showing you different angles based on, do you already have customers? Do you start totally from scratch? How do you get to a target group that actually can pay you? And of course, you get to pick. Like, there's not only going to be one, you will get to pick. And I will also share in this training how you pick that, okay? And that is a 10-minute training for everybody to see. It can go very quick. You don't have to run in circles for years and years again. We can solve this very quick.
I love that. Wow, what a powerful tool, right? And that clarity is so necessary. So we just want to thank you for being here. Any last words from you, Alex Leanne?
No, it's just been such a pleasure, Mona, to come in and share your knowledge and gifts and just really providing the listener like examples of seeing like really where the AI fits in as you're growing your business or working, with your team. Everyone's working towards something, right? And so even just working through the process, rinse and repeat, it's going to show up everywhere. And just knowing that you have this additional tool that's there to support you, to help you be more effective, more efficient, and not losing the personal touch, right? Nothing's going to replace you as an individual. So also to be reminded of that, but it's really there as a partner to support you. And to not be afraid to go out there and give it a try and give it a whirl.
Get rid of the fear, baby. Yeah. Well, thank you again. And we will see you, wonderful high achievers and leaders. Thank you for being with us. Thank you deeply for listening. And we are excited to bring you even more great stuff. Ciao for now.
See you next Thursday. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Unleashed Unstoppable podcast with your hosts, Alexandra Carter and Carol Register.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review, and subscribe.
That's all for this episode, Wildly Ambitious Leaders. See you next week.